Professor Dhanarajan, what major challenges face leaders in distance education institutions?
The one constant challenge for presidents all over the world of agencies such as the Commonwealth of Learning, given their size and whatever, is resource mobilization. See, governments sometimes grandstand when they establish new institutions that are supposed to change the world. But having done that, they then go back and forget about it. The challenge of mobilizing resources to promote distance and open learning in 50 countries must preoccupy a great amount of the president's time. The other thing is, given the rapid way in which globalization has changed academic culture, one where internationalization was seen as something of a good factor, to where internationalization is being seen as a profit factor. We need to go back and change that. I think we have been reasonably successful in the developing economies. I take a lot of pride in saying that I could get services, products from developing economies to be used in other developing economies at a charitable cost. If I can do this, if John can do that with the developed economies, it would be wonderful. Because there is a large investment that goes into building courses, materials, and poor economies can't afford that. Australia, Canada, the UK, and to now India also, they're building up extremely good. They have extremely good courses. Can we make them available at a lesser expense? In other words, how do you manage the cost of intellectual property rights? That will be helpful to poorer Commonwealth countries.
And what about the challenge of research? Any successful educational institution requires an underpinning of research and evaluation to help guide its progress and decision making. Eugene Rubin, how has research changed in recent years?
Well, I think that the research has changed by becoming a matter of individual research for academics rather than systematic research that's done by institutions. If you look back into the 1970s and 1980s, many of the larger distance education institutions like the British Open University, Athabasca University, the Fern Universiteit, they all had systematic programs of research that was aimed at trying to better understand what they do. But with the economic decline in the late 80s and the 90s, maybe even before that, many of these research centers were closed or minimized. What's happened now is that many new faculty who have been introduced into distance education have become interested in it and are starting to do research. But the problem is that each faculty have their own little area of interest, and they no longer really see it as the necessity to systematically look at some of the important issues in the field. So what we have is a lot of fragmented research that's going on, but no real organized systematic research.
I think in some ways that the views of what distance education was much clearer in the beginning of the 90s than it is today. And so I think from my point of view, who still find distance education as a good term and concept for what we are doing, I think a lot of research today is a little difficult to judge because many of the researchers, I think, in ordinary universities believe that they are doing distance education research, and in my view, they very often are not. They are doing research on technology and use of technology in ordinary education, and I see also that in conferences. perhaps not so much here as in some other conferences, that the difficulty of really understanding what distance education is it is not easier today than it was 10 to 15 years ago, I think.
One of the areas that we are trying to look at in distance education research is to see what factors influence what. Because whether it's TV, whether it's computers, etc. And one of the areas that we've also tried to look at is the issue of peer interaction. Does it really enhance learning? Does it really enhance satisfaction? Or is it a barrier to learning? So looking at the concept of peer interaction, which one of my students, Deb LaPointe, presented, is an important area that I think we need to look at further.